It is different than what we usually talk about for the arena, but I think it's completely worthy of the man in the arena quote because you are right in the heart of it and you're in there. You're getting your face marred by dust and sweat and blood metaphorically of your feelings. Hey, what's up everyone? It's the Amazing Marketing Show where we talk about all things marketing. And we talk about the goods and bads and ups and downs, successes, failures, and high CTRs, low CTRs, conversion rates, you name it. We talk about it because it's in everything. I'm Dmitri Smirnov here with Chris Gray. What's going on, Chris?
Dmitri, what up, man?
There's, every week there's so many different topics and that come up in current events, and we're like, oh, that's a marketing conversation. It's not a it always comes back to marketing, and then even more probably principally, if that's a word, it comes back to psychology, and we definitely want to talk about that today. So tell me what's going on with you first.
When you said that, my first thought was one of my favorite quotes by Miyamoto Musashi, great samurai swordsman, and he said, "When you know the way broadly, you see it in all things." And so, you and I are passionate about marketing. I through what we do with the agency thing, we end up talking to corporations, and I'll talk to a marketing representative from a corporation. Um, I am not the best marketer in the world by any means, but anytime we come against these marketers from corporations, we run laps around them because they simply just show up, do a job, and go home. Where you and I, we study this. This is a part of who we are. Our life and business spaghettis together, and so we see marketing in all things because it's a part of us. So yeah, it is in everything.
Yeah, it's definitely a part of us. We're both so passionate about it, and there's so many different aspects to marketing, including the copywriting, making the creative, running the ads in the ad platform, analyzing the data, making adjustments, optimizations, thinking about the psychology, writing the sales letters, all this stuff. Even more on the technical side, the email side, making sure the emails are getting delivered, making sure they're inboxing, making sure the metadata on your landing page is correct. I mean, the list goes on and on. And this is what we do day to day, every single day, even on weekends, even on holidays. We, as marketing agency owners, we live and breathe this. And so we want to talk about what's going on in the arena. Again,
Yep.
going back to the man of the arena quote, we're all about actually doing stuff, even if sometimes we might not be successful at it. So let's talk about from the arena, what's going on in your world, in your arena.
This one's unique for me because we're talking about the man in the arena, and when I tell this what I'm going through or what I'm dealing with right now, for lack of better terms, it makes me feel like less than a man because me and our agency, the Dmitri, the one that handles the home service clients, we are growing, and since we're growing, we have to start building a team. One of the key roles we needed was a client relations manager because right now, me and my business partner are the ones people are calling when things hit the fan. Things are always hitting the fan in business. And so we're always getting calls, and it prevents us from working on the business. So we hire this guy. My business partner hires this guy and then gets my okay. I'm like, yo, if you like him, go ahead. So we hire this guy, and this guy is good. He has what you want in a client relations manager. The thing you can't teach is likability. So he has likability, and he has a little bit of alphaness to him. And Dimitri, I started to feel a little threatened because for the last 8 years, it's been me and my business partner, and then a team of people who pretty much just follow us and don't really they just follow. Where here's a guy who he's not simply just a follower, and I found myself like as soon as he brought value to his first meeting, I found myself feeling emotions of jealousy. I was like, what is that? And then we got on a call, I think earlier this week. It's me, this guy, and my business partner, because this guy's going to be a crucial part of what we do. He's going to be also closing deals. He's going to be a crucial part, and it's going to be good for everybody involved, to include him. So what I'm feeling is pure emotion because he's going to help me make more money. Yet here I am having these feelings of jealousy. So, anyways, we're on this call, and he's moved. My business partner is in Hawaii. This guy we just hired is in the process of moving to Hawaii, close to my business partner. So they talk about that. And then something comes up about golf. My business partner used to be like, he golfed in high school. Golf is his thing. This guy, part of his previous job was a lot of golfing. They're like, oh, you golf, I golf, oh. And they start going off and golfing. I have nothing to add to this conversation. I don't know shit about golfing, so I'm just sitting there. And they're going off. And then my business partner's like, yo, man, and you should home out of the, you should office here next door to me. We'll pay for it. It's only $300. And the guy's like, yeah, I need that because I need a place to office. And they're getting excited about that. And then the last part is they're both devout Christians. So this guy, this client relations partner, can bring a Christian aspect to our phone calls with clients or our Zoom calls or whatever with clients that I can't bring. Plus, he can relate at a level with my business partner that I can't because they're both Christians. So they are going to be close. They're going to get close because they can talk shop and they have a bunch of other things in common. And I think, Dmitri, I felt jealous because I felt like what me and my business partner had was being threatened. I felt like what we had was unique, and it's going to lose that uniqueness because here's somebody else who can bring something even more unique than I can. And these emotions, even talking to you about right now, this is embarrassing. Like I don't feel like manly. I feel vulnerable, and I'm like, I feel guilty for having these types of feelings, and there's a whole bunch of other words I can use for these feelings. And so I'm getting over it. And the way I'm getting over it is, one, being okay with these feelings that I'm not proud of, right? Having this conversation on air this is a way of dealing with it. Another way I'm dealing with it is I'm going to get closer to this new client relations guy because we need to. I'm going to be doing the alley. He's going to be dunking it. I throw it up. He dunks it. I bring the leads in. You need to dunk it. So I'm going to get close to him because that needs to happen. And he's a cool cat. Mm-hmm. And then also, I'm just going to be cognizant of where I'm feeling the emotion. Like even as I talk to you right now, the jealousy emotion's kind of right here. Okay, let me just breathe and sit with that. It's going to go away eventually. And so I just found it unique. It's a different battle in the arena, a completely different one than we usually talk about. But that's the one I've been fighting this week.
It is different than what we usually talk about for the arena, but I think it's completely worthy of the man in the arena quote because you are right in the heart of it, and you're in there. You're getting your face marred by dust and sweat and blood, metaphorically, of your feelings of what's going on. The best thing I think that you mentioned is that you're aware of these feelings that they're happening. You know that this hire is a good thing for your business. It's threatening you, but you're keeping all these things. It's threatening your relationship with your partner, but you're keeping all these things active in your mind all at the same time. Whereas I think in many cases, and we talked about this on a previous episode too, like you remember the previous partners and all that, those difficulties, the fact that you're thinking about it in advance, you know these feelings, you know what's going on, you know what's likely going to happen. You can at least prepare in advance for it and not act counterproductive to yourself and to the business. I think, I mean, it just perfectly encompasses the man in the arena quote. You're not the critic. You're that guy in there, and you're making a difficult decision.
I appreciate it, and I think again it goes back to what we open up this podcast with was, yeah, marketing is a part of who we are, but the meta part behind that is that Dimitri's not just studying marketing. If you ever get a chance to meet Dimitri's a Renaissance man. He's studying all types of things, whether it's self-development, whether it's finance, whether it's this, that. Part of Front Row Dads being a better husband and father. There's the meta thing behind who we are is we like to learn and seek knowledge. And so had I not been reading stuff, learning, meditating, I wouldn't be here with that. I would succumb to that, to the detriment of the business. So I don't know. I'm grateful for the opportunity to have the desire to learn.
I also think anyone can relate to what you just said in their own lives, whether it's a business decision or not. Everyone could probably think back to a moment where they brought a friend to a party and the friend hits it off with your other friend, and then now they become best friends forever and you're kind of left out. And all of a sudden on social media you see them hanging out, they didn't give you an invite, and what's going on here? Like, that was you made that happen, and then they've left you in the dust. So
Yep.
I think it's very reasonable to feel those feelings. The fact that it's in a business setting, and the fact that it seems like the goal is to grow the business, make more profit, and all that. You're keeping that in mind, and you know that this is ultimately good for the business. I think maybe that even kind of helps this, because if it was strictly a person to person type of relationship, maybe it'd be more difficult of a pill to swallow.
Yeah. Well, thanks for giving me some space to talk about that, man. What have you been dealing with, sir?
Yeah, I mean, so I'm also in the arena. There's this thought that I've had, and I want to explain. I want to set it up a little bit. When I first joined the mastermind world here that we're in, where people that are ahead of us in business teach us how it was, we changed effectively those 5 people that we spend the most time with, that we all know, like, you're those 5 people that you spend time with. So instead of your buddies drinking beer every night and day, maybe, like, instead of that being your 5, you're now effectively surrounded by the 5 who are all operating businesses, and ideally, like, in front row dads, thinking about their families and all that stuff. So you're changing the game for yourself in that way. So ever since then, there was this thought that kept, not a thought, there was this teaching that I kept trying to follow, is that you need to replace yourself in business. You need to hire a COO, hire a CEO, hire a director of whatever. And because you don't want to be the dancing bear. I've heard that so many times from people on stage. And side note, I guess, the whole people on stage thing, I'm starting to get a little bit more taking things with a grain of salt, because a presentation is different from reality is what I'm finding. Now, there's still value from presentations, but it's more of an entertainment product when you really think about it.
Yes.
So you got to treat, even if you go to a conference, and there's some really great conferences like TNC and things like that, where they're super good value, but ultimately the presentation has to be entertaining, and it has to make a point, and it might not necessarily hold true to step-by-step reality. Anyway, in the beginning of my founder CEO career, my first goal was, how do I replace myself? How do I get out of dancing bear status? How do I be an absentee business owner, where I have this beautiful business that runs by itself and I do nothing and I make all the money? That's what I was taught. And I spent a lot of money on salaries of high level people who I thought were going to replace me, and they almost ruined my business. They almost, because we lost clients because of them, we lost employees because of them. The systems were not properly put in place. And I started thinking, well, what actually happens in businesses that are successful, and who are the biggest role models that I can model? And I'm thinking just like the absolute greats, the ones who run or founded $1 trillion companies. And we all know about Elon Musk. We know about Steve Jobs and Bill Gates, and even current CEOs of those companies. Those guys are not absentee owners. They live and breathe their businesses. And I'm like, wait a minute. So the people who, and I'm looking in the smaller companies, medium-sized companies, they are in their business. Look at Gary Vee, right? He runs a marketing agency, and that's his life. That's what he runs. And yes, he has people who help, but it's not like he's absentee. I think that's more of an exception than a rule. And so I've really embraced that thought of, why don't I be the founder CEO who's actually all in on my own business until it's ready, until it's ready to get a new CEO who's going to be all in equally. But that comes with its own challenges. So the point I really want to make is what's happening right now. We're up to about 15 team members at this point. And what I'm doing is I'm going back to uh, ad platform management. I'm going back to copywriting. Just today, we did a call with the team where we did a full hour on, and we just did about a headline and 2 lines of copy. It was a copywriting call with the whole creative team, and we just like deep dive into analysis. Felt like it felt like almost a college level course, and we're working in a group, and it felt fun, and I felt like it felt right. It felt like I was really in this company that I founded, and I feel good about that. So I made the mistakes last year and the year before and before that, and now I feel better about what I'm doing on a day to day basis.
Oh, I just love this. I love this shit. I mean, I've never heard it framed the way you did it because you were right. Everybody's talking about removing yourself. You can't be the bottleneck. You can't be a part of it. That's what everybody talks about. And then I never thought these people that are crushing it at a super high level are not super removed. They are very much involved. Just like you said, I never thought of it like that, Dimitri. I love that. I love the crucial counterintuitive. It's like jujitsu, right? So you think you should push, but no, you need to pull, right? Or in order to get a bunch of, in order, like even when I was dating, in order to get women to like me, you can't be nice all the time. These are counterintuitive things, but they're so true. And this is very true in this situation. And I want to go back to something I bookmarked something you said about these people on stage. Um, getting into this game, when people were on stage, I'd go to these conferences and they're on stage. They have this level of authority to me that I'm thinking is whatever. And I'm writing down what they're saying. And I'm just like, I'm not looking at it as much as a presentation. I'm thinking they're giving me some content that might change my life. I'm looking at it totally different than today. I look at it very different. Like we talked about that traffic and conversions committee that we're going to be a part of. I met with Emma Bill earlier this week. Shout out to Emma Bill. We had a really good conversation, deep conversation. You know, Dmitri, how this world goes. It doesn't always go like that. So it's good, refreshing to have a conversation with somebody deep. So shout out to Emma Bill, traffic and
Yeah,
conversions.
shout out Emily.
But we were talking, and she goes, "Well, what gurus do you follow? What gurus do you look up to?" And Dimitri, I didn't have an answer. A year ago, and definitely 5 years ago, I would have told her this person, that person, da 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 da. But as we've been in this game long enough, I am not where I want to be. I am nothing important. I'm nothing special. But I've been around people who are the people in marketing or whatever. And you get around them, you're like, man, some of these people are messed up. Like, I don't want to be anything like you. I don't want nothing that you have going on other than learning what made you good at marketing. And in some cases, from what I see, this might be the only thing in your life that you were good at, to the detriment of everything else. And so I basically told her that, where I don't have a guru or somebody I'm following. I look for tips here and there, but it's dangerous when you start to idolize people.
Oh, that's a great point, and I think the looking up to people or having to be nice all the time or being nice to everyone, that framework really shifts at a certain point. And by the way, I think this can relate back to marketing and marketing your brand or your business. Is you shouldn't just like you shouldn't be trying to sell everybody and work with everybody because then nobody wants to work with you. The same way you don't have to talk to everyone at the conference. You don't have to like everyone in your mastermind. You you take what you can from them. If they're saying something, you can make notes and like, oh, that was interesting, and the other 99% of what they said I'm just going to dismiss. Or maybe or maybe everything they say is smart, but you just don't want to deal with it. I think there's actually some value in excluding that from your life, because when there is alignment more than just on a content level but on an energy level, that's when like the real magic of business can happen. What do you think?
Bro, you before this call, you said it best, and it was a refreshing comment where it is nice to be at a stage where we don't have to interact with certain people at these conferences or these masterminds if we don't want to. When I first got into the game, my very first conference I went to was by this affiliate guy named Greg Davis. He was putting on his own little thing, and I go there and I made connections that helped me change my life. But the people that I had to learn these different skill sets from are not people that I would spend any time with today. There's a couple of them. But back then, what choice did you have? Like you were this guy over here is crushing it in this thing, and he's offering me the opportunity to learn. Whether I like him or not, I'm gonna take this phone call and let me go do all this work and spend this time with somebody who I have no desire to be around. And so it's refreshing to that was, oh gosh, 2017 when I met those dudes, right? So it's refreshing to fast forward to 2024 where I'm like, I don't have to hang around people like that anymore. Like I put my time in, I put the effort in, and now I'm at a spot where I can choose to be around people who are high level people, not just in marketing, but just in life in general.
Yeah, and I'm a believer in all things energy stuff. I think there's so much more to the world that we can't see or even measure.
Yeah.
Uh, Going in a physics tangent, all the dark matter and dark energy that is like a mathematical assumption. We don't know what any of that stuff is. I think there's yeah, even I mean, you look at books that like Think and Grow Rich. There's so much power to intention and to thought and connecting. I think when two brains connect on a certain wavelength or energy field, that's when things can multiply, they can grow, and because there's so many options now, you get to pick who do you vibe with, who can you grow with. You don't have to grow with everyone, and if you try, just like in business, it's just not going to work.
Yes.
Okay, so before we move on, I just kind of in the back of my mind, I was replaying what you were saying at the top of this podcast, and the whole uh, story that you said to me. That sounds like great copy, by the way. Like if you were to package that into a sales email or something, or a sales letter, I think everyone could relate to that. So, I mean, maybe you do it. I think you do it better than anyone I know, quite frankly. And anyone who's listening to this, maybe use that as a little template. You could use that psychological pain point to draw attention, build trust, and then go ahead and sell whatever it is that you're trying to do.
Bro, you're right. Because what we're trying to do in those letters and that copy is elicit emotion. What jealousy is a strong emotion. People kill other people over jealousy, right? And so that's the root of what I was dealing with right there. And you're right. That's a strong emotion to play with, and everybody can relate, like you said.
Okay, well, let's move to I kind of actually on the same topic of we're talking about some of these great founders and leaders, people who are in their business, people who are innovating and hiring other innovators like you are doing, or hiring other A players, we'll call them, to help them in their businesses. What are the trends that we're seeing some of these big companies do? And one of the trends that we're seeing from a design perspective is that everyone is going minimalist. Minimalist. I mean, logos, designs, websites, even furniture, interior design. It seems like right now is the era of minimalism. What do you think about it?
I don't have any strong thoughts on that. I know how it plays a role in marketing. Before I get into any of these random thoughts I have, I'm more interested in what your thoughts are when it comes to this minimalist approach to marketing.
We're in direct response. We're putting ads out on Google and Facebook and YouTube, and it's the currency is attention, which is now at this point cliche. We know it's attention. Does a minimalist design get the attention like something else would? To me, the answer is a strong no. Anytime I see something minimalist, to me, it's like that's never going to do well. The CTRs are lower. Everything's lower. So, from a direct response perspective, I'm against minimalism.
To me, I would be for it depending on the context. So let's take the email business that we have where we're sending out stuff to the right wing party. The major thing, the ad for us is that email subject line. Just yesterday, there was the presidential debate with Trump and Biden, right? And if I was to put a email subject line that was minimalist for that, like Trump and Biden debate results, that's bullshit. Nobody's clicking on that. That's not going to go anywhere, right? I have to spice it up, right? Debate this, that, your toast, the like something that will make. I have to really spice. You can't go minimal like that. But then, if you know your audience, you may be able to go minimal. For example, let's keep this same audience. I could put 5 shot, 3 dead. Boom, massive click rate. Minimal? That's a minimal email subject line, but it's dealing with death. I can go very minimal with death and get a response. And so that to me, it's highly contextual whether you can go minimal in an ad or not.
Well, I think with copy, it is different than the creative level. The copy, I think, actually is the more minimalist that you can go while eliciting a response, the better off you are. And I think that's what all the old greats teach is basically write a paragraph, write a page, write a book even, and how far can you distill it? Can you distill it into one line? And so that's the ultimate headline right there. But in terms of imaging, so like if we look at what's popular, I keep thinking back to when I think minimalist, I think furniture, and it's all just this white, plain, no color. And so if we were to draw an ad like that, nobody would stop the scroll. They wouldn't even know that they passed anything. So I'm kind of against this. If you're a company like Apple, then you can get away with it. And actually, that's one of the things that set you apart at the beginning is, okay, well, you have this beautiful iPhone. It's just slick and it's minimalist and all the stuff that they make. But from a marketing perspective, I think it's kind of a bad idea.
I'm gonna yes and that. I think this one is there's John Vroman from Front Row Dads always says this is on the opposite end of one truth is another truth. And so looking back at the ad copy, let's take Bald Buck. Bald Buck, there's probably not a lot of people doing the e-com food game, but I crush it. I can crush it with recipes, and it's usually the copy is a quote from. It looks like a quote, like I made this chicken dinner in 5 minutes, and my family loved it, and there's nothing left. They want it every single day. Whatever. I'll make it a little more simple than that. But you get what I'm saying. I put a quote there from Mary T. Right. That would be the copy. The image is what gets you because in this situation, it's food. So I'm trying to put a mouth-watering image in front of you, and I'm being literal. Like I've looked at my own images to come up on my face, and my mouth is watered. That just happens. I don't control that. So if I have a simple image that causes something, makes your mouth water, oh, you're going to click on that. Your mouth watered, right? And so in the Bald Buck, it's very simple. Quote, mouth-watering image, minimalistic. There's not a lot of copy happening there. It's not a video or anything. It's just something that makes your mouth water, but it works like game busters. Again, it's contextual in my opinion.
I'm going to have to agree with you on that. It was a yes, and it's if you can distill it to something that's still effective while keeping it minimalist, that's probably going to be your most effective ad because you're stripping away all the extra fluff that you don't need, and that's going to distract your customer. You're getting to the heart of the issue, and if you can get their attention with a minimal design, then you're probably better off.
And taking that same point, if you can that minimal design elicits something. Going back to talking about the death copy, there's something about death that elicits emotion with a certain audience. And then with the Bald Buck stuff, it's food. It elicits saliva. It gets a reaction, and it might not take much to get that reaction, or it might take a whole lot to get that reaction. It just depends.
One of the thought experiments I like to run with any marketing question is how could this affect or how can this work with local businesses? And I'm thinking of a restaurant. Okay, let's say restaurant. When I come in and I see a massive menu, unless it's the Cheesecake Factory, which is known for that, and I usually literally pick the exact same thing every time because I don't want to read their long menu. The restaurants that have a minimalist, here's the appetizers, here's the entrees, and here's four options each top. Like, okay, thank you. I can actually just make a decision and go. And so that's one of the things maybe minimalist does offer more so than something else more complicated. Is you just give them, here's the product, buy this product. It's not complicated. Go do it now.
Um, what we were, the mastermind we were a part of, Driven. Perry was talking about there's a business that was doing multi millions every single month off of one SKU, one product. As an example, what you're talking about, Ball Buck seasoning, we have two products. That's it, and that's what we do there. And then, you ever go? Did you ever go to Babe's Chicken when you lived here in Texas? You ever heard of Babe's Chicken?
No.
When you come back, we got. Do you even like chicken?
Yeah, I like chicken.
Yeah. So do I. I'm genetically predisposed to liking it, as Dave Chappelle would say. Um, Babe's Fried Chicken here in Texas. Uh, it's one of the most. One of the better fried chicken spots in the Dallas Fort Worth area. And when you go in there, you are getting either you got fried chicken or chicken fried steak. Those are your choices. You're getting the same salad. No Caesars, no this. It's the same house salad, same house dressing. There's no ranch. You're getting the same freaking Italian ranch dressing. You're getting biscuits and you're getting potatoes and corn. That's it, bro. And they are huge, massive. But when you walk, there's not how much of this do you want? Is really the question. And it's a big restaurant franchise down here. And so to your point, yeah, that minute, like taking the decision out of things and then being really good with what you're offering can work in your favor significantly.
Makes perfect sense. This is what people want. Give it to them, and sure, have your little add-ons and whatever. Maybe grow your margin a little bit, but focus on what works. You know what? I think actually I'm gonna go back and see where we can be more minimalist in our copy. I think a lot of times, so I'm thinking specifically, even thinking of ecom for some of our clients that sell lots of products and lots of variations of each product. And I think as marketers, we're like, okay, let's market everything. Here, there's 100 SKUs and we have to market 100 SKUs. And that's probably a fallacy. It's probably a mistake.
I think we talked about this at one time, or we may have talked about this online where I had that owner who had that jewelry store and had that $500 budget, and she wanted to sell $3,000 jewelry for with a $500 marketing budget, and she's like, "Where do you start?" I'm like, "You got all this crap. You don't have much money to use. Pick one thing, and then go from there." I was talking to my sister, and I don't think I'm going off the rails. I hope this is still in line with what we're talking about. She had this grandiose like idea for teachers, like this app that was like a social media platform for teachers. And I'm like, yo, just pick elementary teachers who do art and then make videos for them and just do that. Like you can do that today. The other thing you're talking about, you need like venture capitalists and all that, you know what I mean? And so there's just something to like, just that one thing.
That kind of reminds me. I think I've heard probably every guy over the age of 60 who I've ever talked to tells me this is like how many different things they invented, but somebody else created.
Yes.
And I'm like, if you had just simplified that down to one audience and one product, you could have been that guy who did this, but you had the grandiose ideas of you're going to do all these different things, so many variations, and it was just too much to get started.
Yeah, you and I have talked about this. It's just motion. Like, let's just get the ball rolling. Just get the ball rolling. And when you do that, you're ahead of 90% of the people that you're talking about who had all these ideas, but they never even got the ball rolling.
Okay, so I'm going to share a little bit of some of my inner thoughts, and this is business related, personal, family, and just like over the years of how I've thought about different things. Hopefully you find this interesting. Is that when I was growing up and I felt the pressure of this, maybe you did too, but every single school year there was pressure and competition. Like you have to be at the top of your class. I grew up outside of Washington D.C. Is just, and like I think all major big cities are like this, and it's like every year it's a competition. It's to your point is like get the ball rolling, keep it rolling, roll it faster, and never stop. But once we graduate, once we leave all that, it seems like all that kind of slows down, and it's like not quite as competitive. But the people who continue rolling that ball, they're the ones that really start to ascend into their late 20s, into their 30s and 40s, and etc. Like, so the point I'm trying to make, I think this also relates to, for example, fitness. People who go on these crazy diets, go on the crazy routines, they burn out really fast. So I guess this all comes back to burnout, and to make things work. I like what you said about keeping the ball rolling. So it all comes back to how can we keep the ball rolling? And I think the first point of it is not roll it too fast. And that goes back to just pick the one thing, roll with it, go with it. Don't try to do too much. I mean, I just moved. I have two little kids, got the business, other thing, like so I'm starting to just limit. What can I actually do to keep the ball rolling? Whatever I can do to not let that ball stop rolling.
An object in motion stays in motion, and that's then the goal. What you're talking about is keeping the motion going, right? So you've done what a lot of people don't do, which is get it in motion. I think that going back to what you're saying, there's this push on us when we're in high school and about your GPA and this, that, and for those who care about it. And then when you go to college, if you go to college, or when you get out, you kind of get out of that mode. For us, one of the ways to stay in that mode, I might be going off the track of what you're talking about here, but this is just where my mind's going. Is one of the ways to help stay in that mode of not only keeping the ball rolling, but accomplishing major objectives as we do so, right? Improving as that ball is rolling is it's the whole show me your friends, I'll show you who you are. So if I'm out here, I graduate high school, and then I'm just kind of on my own, just kind of going about life and just going through it. Well, that's what's going to happen. Then I'm 60 years old talking about all these ideas I had that I never did, right? Whereas if I put myself in certain circles where there's still that competitive aspect, like a mastermind, where you're going there to learn, but it's still competition, man. You're still kind of measuring yourself. And for me, I I might not be the best in there, but I'm sure as hell not going to be the worst. I might enter as the worst, but I'm not going to stay there. And so it's one of the things that's helped me keep the ball rolling in a manner that's progressive is being in the masterminds that we're a part of. Because you're looking around you and you're like, I can't be the weakest link here. There's not everybody's doing this stuff. There's no way in heck I'm just gonna let them pass me up. It's not even about money at that point as much as it is pride, which could be a good and bad thing.
Everything that you say, I just want to like write this into a sales letter somehow because it's like it's eliciting emotion. It's like great copy that could be put together somewhere. But man, I agree with and I want to also make this point. I guess we'll wrap up soon, but um, in a mastermind, because that competitive spirit starts to get revved up again, you kind of want to throw all your other priorities out the window and just compete in that one little
Yeah.
pool. And that's a dangerous game too, because you don't there's life is, and I mean, we all know, everyone knows that the older you get, it seems like the more complex life becomes, the more variables, and in potentially a good way. So that's another thing to keep in mind is that you have to. This is something I'm keeping in mind all the time. Is I have to watch myself at the same time so I don't get carried away.
Yes. Absolutely. Because when the clock hits and it's time to get out of work mode and then go be with the family, um, I've had the challenge of turning this thing off and not, like, okay, time to transition and go into dad and husband mode and put the same level of intensity towards that I was doing with business. But to your point, when you start feeling that competition, you start having these things you want to get accomplished. It's almost like, you're in business heat. It's hard to get out of it, man.
That's a great term for it. Yeah, this turned into like more like a dad's therapy session, which I like, by the way. But it's so, but it's like everything happens at the same time. So it feels like all of a sudden, it's you're having your family, your kids are little, and they need attention at the same time. The business is starting to snowball, and if you put a lot of time and effort into it, you could see that it could just take off that way. But would it be worth the trade off? And I mean, the answer in but you also can't do none of it because again, back to being men and being competitive, we have to be involved in it. I mean, set aside providing is super huge, but super huge is required for survival. So there's that too. But is how much do you push each lever? I think we're all going through, and we're ending this on a kind of an arena topic like we started.
Yeah, and as you're talking, it reminds me of we're about to wrap up here, but I've been listening to the Bhagavad Gita heavy. I listen to it pretty much every day, and the concept that I just love so much, Dmitri, that I'm just hoping to one day embody. Far from it, whereas you give everything you do like your maximum. Like if whatever you're working on is getting the absolute best that you can give, yet you detach from the result. And I think that there's no better if whoever can embody that, what a life. Because you're free from the pressure and good or bad, you're not going with it, yet you're doing everything to the best of your ability and just moving on. Um, so something for me to strive for.
I think something for all of us to strive for, and it's like an enlightened perspective of how to do things, and man, I hope that you're able to, and that I am too, that we can detach ourselves from the result. Probably the hardest thing to do out
Oh,
there, really.
yes, absolutely.
All right, guys, that's the end of this episode. Looking forward to the next one where we're going to discuss more things on all things marketing on the Amazing Marketing Show. Talk to you later.
Peace.
Bye.